The Persian ruler King Xerxes walks through the dead. He gives his men a single order: find the Spartan king. It is Persian custom to honor valiant enemies. But when they find Leonidas, Xerxes orders him to be beheaded and his head mounted on a pike. One king, 3 days. Thousands of Persian soldiers were dead in a corridor of rock and dust. The god king had been made to look mortal, and it was a humiliation he could not forgive. The world remembered the 300 Spartans who caused it. Their names, their epitaph still quoted today. But in the same dirt, under the same arrows, lay 700 more bodies, including a potter from a small city most of Greece had already written off. He had no law forcing him to stay, no king commanding him. He stayed anyway. This is the story of the 700 Thespians. The men who made the same choice as the 300 Spartans died the same death, and were quietly erased from the greatest last stand in history. August 480 BCE. The Greek city-states are crumbling. Xerxes, king of kings, has crossed the Hellespont on a bridge of ships. His army is somewhere between 150,000 and 300,000 strong. His engineers have dug canals through mountains. His supply depots stretch 300 miles of coast. When his envoys arrive at a Greek city, they ask for one thing: earth and water, symbols of submission. Hand them over, and you live. Refuse, and you die. Most of Boeotia, the region north of Athens, hands them over. Thebes, the regional power, kneels first. City after city follows, except two: Plataea and Thespiae. Thespiae, a small polis tucked beneath Mount Helicon. Farmers, potters, and traders, famous for its festival of the Muses and its cult of Eros. When the Persian envoys come, Thespiae refuses to submit. The decision is not only about Persia, it is about Thebes. Thebes and Thespiae have hated each other for generations. When Thebes kneels to Xerxes, Thespiae cannot. And so, a small farming town chooses a fight it cannot win against an empire it cannot survive, because the only thing worse than Persian rule is Theban rule underneath it. Thebes has twice the population and sends only 400 men under compulsion. Thespiae knows exactly what happens to cities that defy the great king. Then comes the summons. Leonidas is marching north with 300 Spartans. He needs every sword Greece can spare. Here is what most telling skip: Sparta cannot send more. A sacred festival, the Carnea, is underway. Spartan law forbids full mobilization during the rite. Leonidas brings 300 men, each one handpicked, each one with a living son to carry his bloodline. Sparta is hedging. The main army will follow, theoretically. Thespiae has no such excuse, and Thespiae does not send a bodyguard. Thespiae sends 700 men under their general, Demophilus, son of Diadromos. The entire hoplite class of the city, every citizen wealthy enough to own the bronze panoply. A year later, at the Battle of Plataea, a burned Thespiae will scrape together 1,800 lightly armed men. No hoplites. Because the hoplites are already dead at Thermopylae. They sent everything they had, all 700, everyone. By the time the Allied force reaches the pass, it numbers roughly 7,000. Thespians, Spartans, Phocians, Thebans, Corinthians, Tegeans, a coalition of cities that chose to stand. The pass itself is barely 50 feet wide at its narrowest, a corridor between sheer cliffs and the sea. The Greeks call it Thermopylae, the hot gates. For 2 days, the geography does the killing. Xerxes sends the Medes and Scythians first. They hit the Greek line and die in front of it. The phalanx holds. When one rank tires, another rotates forward. This is where geography becomes the weapon. Only a few hundred Persians can reach the front rank at once. The rest pile up behind them, pushed forward by the weight of the column, unable to fight, unable to retreat. The Thespians fight in that line, shield to shield with Spartans. Their hoplon covers the man beside them. Their spear works with the man in front. They rotate in and out of the front rank exactly like the Spartans do. For the first time in recorded history, a small Boeotian town is killing Persians alongside Lacedaemonians and holding its end of the line. Xerxes loses his patience and sends the Immortals, 10,000 elite soldiers, the personal guard of the great king. Their ranks replenish instantly. They have never failed. They fail here. By the end of the second day, the math of the empire has stopped working. Xerxes has lost thousands. The pass has barely been contested. Then, under cover of night, a man walks into the Persian camp. His name is Ephialtes, son of Eurydamus, a local from Trachis. He knows a goat path through the mountains, the Anopia. It curves above the pass and drops behind the Greek line. For a promised reward, he offers to guide the immortals. Xerxes says yes. At dawn, 1,000 Phocian soldiers posted on the Anopia hear the rustle of oak leaves under marching feet. They see the immortals coming. Instead of blocking the path, they withdraw uphill, expecting to be attacked. The Persians ignore them, march past, descend toward the pass. Runners reach Leonidas before sunrise. He calls a council. The tactical reality is clear. The pass is lost. Staying means encirclement. Leonidas dismisses the bulk of the army. Corinthians, Tegeans, Mantineans, over 4,000 men leave. They will live. They will fight at Plataea. He keeps the 400 Thebans against their will. He suspects they have already Medized, and he wants hostages, not comrades. Then something happens that Herodotus records, but rarely gets told. The 700 Thespians refuse to leave. No law forces them. No king commands them. Their city will burn whether they live or die. There is no tactical reason to stay. They stay anyway. They stand next to Leonidas, and they say no to the order to go home. Think about what this means. Leonidas is fulfilling a Delphic prophecy. His death is scripted. The Spartans are professionals, raised from age 7 to die in formation. None of that applies to the men from Thespiae. They are farmers, craftsmen, citizens of a town most of Greece had already forgotten about that year. They choose this anyway. Their commander Demophilus does not record a speech. Herodotus gives Leonidas every laconic quip. The Thespian general gets nothing. He just stands in the line. Dawn, third day. Leonidas makes a decision that still confuses military historians. He does not hold the Phocian wall. He advances beyond it into the wider section of the pass. All of them, Spartans and Thespians together, not defending, attacking. If they are going to die, they will kill as many Persians as possible first. The Greeks push into the wider pass, and the killing starts immediately. Persian officers drive their own men forward with whips. The front ranks have no room to fight and no room to retreat. Bodies stack in the narrows. The Greeks push so hard that 2 of Xerxes' brothers, Abracomes and Hyperanthes, are cut down in the press. Royal blood, spent in the dirt. Then Leonidas falls, shot through by arrows deep in the enemy line. What happens next is the most ferocious phase of the entire battle. Spartans and Thespians charge forward to recover his body. 4 times the Persians drag him away. 4 times the Greeks take him back. When their 8-foot spears shatter, they draw their short swords, the xiphos. When the swords break, Herodotus writes, they fight with their hands, with their teeth. But when the immortals appear behind the Greek line, the Thebans see their chance to abandon the Thespians and Spartans. They break formation, raise their hands, and surrender to Xerxes. They are branded with the royal mark and marched away. The immortals descend from the goat path behind them. The trap closes. The surviving Spartans and Thespians fall back to a small rise within the pass, Kolonos Hill. On the Spartan side of the line, Dieneces fights in the shade he joked about. On the Thespian side, a warrior named Dithyrambus, son of Harmatidas, matches him, kill for kill. 2 men from 2 different worlds, standing in the same dirt, dying the same death. No statue was ever built for Dithyrambus. No film ever named him. But on Kolonos Hill, he earned the same rank of honor as the greatest Spartan there. Xerxes has seen enough close combat. He will not lose more men to fists and teeth. He orders the archers forward. The sky goes dark. The last Spartans and Thespians die buried under arrows on Kolonos Hill. Over 2,000 years later, archaeologists excavating that mound would find thousands of bronze Persian arrowheads still in the soil. Here is where the story turns from battle into legacy, and from legacy to propaganda. Thermopylae was, strictly speaking, a Greek defeat. The pass fell. Xerxes marched south. Athens was evacuated and burned. Thespiae was razed to the ground when the Persian army swept through Boeotia, exactly as its citizens had known it would be. But a story survived the rubble, and that story became the problem. In the decades after the war, Sparta did what Sparta did best. It built a legend. Leonidas became a saint of civic discipline. The priests at Delphi, who had counseled most Greeks to submit before the war, quietly reframed his death as fulfilling a prophecy, one that, conveniently, made the entire battle about one Spartan king. Sparta had apparatus, Thespiae did not. Sparta had its own festivals, close ties to the priesthood at Delphi, and the loudest voice in post-war Greece. The Delphic Amphictyony, the religious council that oversaw the sanctuary, commissioned the official memorial inscriptions at the battlefield. Yet, there's no stone honoring the Thespians. The poet Simonides composed an epitaph for the Spartan grave specifically. "Go tell the Spartans, stranger passing by, that line you have heard. The other line written for everyone else, you have not." The Thespians got a separate epigram of their own, composed by a Megarian poet named Philiades around the time of the battle. It called them the men who dwelt beneath the brow of Helicon. The verse survived only as a fragment, quoted by later writers. It never entered Western memory. There was no famous marble inscription at the battlefield for them, just silence. A Boeotian writer named Plutarch noticed the bias 6 centuries later. In his essay, On the Malice of Herodotus, he accused the historian of being systematically unfair to the Boeotian cities. The silence around the Thespians fits exactly the pattern he was attacking. The modern world finished the work. Frank Miller's graphic novel, 300, omits them almost entirely. Zack Snyder's film does the same. The number 300 became a brand. 700 became a footnote. Today, at Thermopylae, you can see the tall bronze statue of Leonidas, spear raised, shield forward, unveiled in 1955, photographed by millions. A few meters away, smaller and quieter, stands the other monument, unveiled in 1997. It is a headless figure of Eros, the god of Thespiae. One wing outstretched, one wing broken. The plaque reads, "In memory of the 700 Thespians." No speeches, no film, no brand, just a name and a broken wing. The potter from Thespiae has been dead for 2,500 years. He was never a Spartan, he was never famous, but on a morning in August, when he had every reason to run, he stayed 700 times.